At the end of this video you'll find step-by-step instructions to sign up within minutes for a free email service that is totally anonymous.
For decades they told us we were crazy. They said those grid-like streaks in the sky were just condensation, nothing more than harmless trails left by passing jets. But behind the ridicule, behind the denial, something sinister was taking shape, hidden in plain sight. Now, the walls are finally starting to crack. The Chemtrails Task Force, a covert cross-agency unit activated just weeks ago, has already sent shockwaves through the highest levels of power. Rogue agencies have been shut down, financial networks frozen, and in a stunning turn of events, the task force has made its first arrests. Military contractors, caught red-handed in unauthorized atmospheric spraying operations, are being taken into custody. Names are being named, secret programs are being dragged into the light. And still, this is only the beginning. Because the real question isn't just who is behind it, it's why. And once you hear what the task force has uncovered, you'll never look at the sky or the government the same way again. Since the moment we started pulling back the curtain on chemtrails, the pushback has been relentless. Not just from the usual trolls and so-called fact-checkers, but from coordinated voices, determined to protect the narrative at all costs. They issue threats, they flood the comments, they hit us with shadow bans. They call it a conspiracy. This is what happens when you are over the target, as evidenced by the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, who stunned the media when she confirmed the US military are spraying chemtrails over North America.
During an Edmonton town hall, Premier Danielle Smith discussed chemtrails, openly pondering a conspiracy theory.
The other person told me that if anyone is doing it, it's the U.S. Department of Defense. And, I have some limitations in what I can do in my job. I don't know that I would have much power if that is the case, if the U.S. Department of Defense is spraying us.
But despite the attacks, it's important we continue. Because, can you believe it? There are still people out there who don't believe chemtrails are real.
According to a reporter from Alberta Views, Smith was answering a question about chemtrails. Smith went on to say she will do what she can to investigate, but Professor Timothy Caulfield notes there's nothing to look into.
Absolutely no evidence to support chemtrails. They're a conspiracy theory, kind of on the level with flat Earth.
People who cling to the official narrative like it's gospel, who parrot words like contrails and conspiracy theory, without ever asking why those trails hang in the sky for hours, stretch for miles, and ripple out into our natural grids above our towns, our farms, our schools. They ignore the evidence, they ignore the independent lab results, the whistleblower testimony, the patent records and flight logs.
Then you see these bands of very distinct cloud cover moving into the region. That is not rain, that is not snow, believe it or not. Military aircraft flying through the region is dropping chaff. Small bits of aluminum, sometimes it's made of plastic or even metallicized paper products, but it's used as an anti-radar issue, and obviously they're up there practicing. Now they won't confirm that, but I was in the Marine Corps for many years, and I'll tell you right now, that's what it is.
The deniers even ignore the arrogant pilots who admit what they're doing when they're confronted after a hard day's spraying.
We're talking about all of the metals and the flares that you're using. So aluminum and zinc propel the silver iodide. You're spraying right over us all the time. And our plant life is suffering. They are now selling aluminum genetically modified seeds to grow food because our soil is so contaminated. Okay, so what you're spraying is not good for the environment. And it's not good for the people because there's an early onset dementia, there's Alzheimer's, things are starting to happen to people's health. And I really do believe there's a linkage to what we're breathing in the environment every day. When you guys spray us in November through April, it's your yearly contract. I'm aware of that too.
Yeah, no, that's their responsibility. That's not our responsibility.
I understand, yeah. But the money that you're receiving to do this is coming from, is it taxpayers that are paying for this?
That's not my department.
These deniers also ignore what they can see with their own eyes. Spray patterns that switch on and off mid-flight, planes without visible identification, trails that create overcast haze out of clear blue skies. And worst of all, they ignore what their bodies are telling them. The brain fog, the fatigue, the mood swings, the respiratory spikes after heavy spraying days, the metallic taste in the air, the tasteless vegetables grown in aluminium, strontium and barium-rich soil, the burning in your throat that wasn't there yesterday. But denial is a powerful drug, and it's been served to the public in massive doses by the very agencies now under investigation. Because if you can convince the population to doubt their own senses, you can do anything. Let's dive into the hard evidence, the facts hiding in plain sight, and the breaking developments happening behind the scenes. The kind of news the mainstream media is desperately trying to bury. And let's be honest, they're not just covering this up out of loyalty or laziness. No, at this point, it's about survival. Because if the truth gets out, it won't just destroy careers, it will bring down empires. Let's go over the work of the Chemtrails Task Force in its first few weeks. Nicole Shanahan, RFK Jr.'s former running mate, confirmed the task force was formed in the HHS and has since branched out into a multi-agency investigatory body.
And I do know that HHS is in the process of putting together a team to investigate this. Much is unknown. Some is known. We do know that cloud seeding does exist. We do know that counties throughout the United States have active contracts with private companies. I do know the Gates Foundation is involved in geoengineering. I do know Open Philanthropy is involved in geoengineering. I know that the World Economic Forum has pushed it, and several universities are pushing for it.
Then the mainstream media was forced to admit that federal agencies, including National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, have been targeted with precision, with key sub-agencies gutted and probed for further leads. Now the Chemtrails Task Force is turning its attention to a key player in the spraying operations, the US military, and more specifically, the US Air Force. What they've uncovered so far is nothing short of staggering. This is the part they never wanted you to hear. Behind the veil of classified contracts and compartmentalized operations, military contractors, funded with your tax dollars, have been carrying out advanced atmospheric spraying campaigns across the country. We're talking about deliberate deployments over cities, towns, and rural heartlands, farms targeted, weather patterns manipulated, sunlight blocked, fog engineered, soil slowly degraded with aluminium and other devastating life-ending chemicals over time. This isn't accidental, it's not theory. It's a covert operation happening in plain sight, masked by jargon, hidden under layers of bureaucracy, and sold to the public as progress. 2 military contractors have been arrested for their role in piloting aircraft that were caught in the act, spraying highly toxic chemtrails over Florida's skies. Sources indicate that these operations were based out of Eglin Air Force Base, deep in the Florida Panhandle, an installation with a long and complex history of classified testing. But this time, the veil slipped. Eyes were watching, and now action has been taken. These contractors are currently in custody following a joint operation involving military police and federal investigators. They are now facing federal charges related to illegal atmospheric manipulation, violations that strike at the heart of environmental law, human rights, and national security. Due to the extreme sensitivity of the classified operation, officials are stonewalling public inquiry. But we have filed a Freedom of Information Act request to demand transparency. We want to know who they are, and we want to know who gave the orders. And we will not rest until the whole truth is exposed. While this is an admirable start for the Chemtrails Task Force, it's just the beginning. This operation needs to continue at full speed. No delays, no distractions. The public deserves answers, and the damage demands justice. Because let's be honest, the contractors were just the hands. The real criminals? The ones signing off on the missions and funding the operations? They're still walking free. If the task force wants to take this seriously, they will need to follow the trail up the chain of command. And they should start by listening to the Air Force whistleblowers we're about to bring you. These are insiders, people who saw what was happening, were told to stay silent, and are now risking everything to speak out. Coming up, the Pentagon, the paper trail, and the part of this cover-up the government hopes you never hear. State Department whistleblower William Blum once said, no matter how paranoid or conspiracy-minded you are, what the government is actually doing is worse than you imagine. And according to insiders, Blum's chilling observations ring true. The pilots involved in these operations were often described as having sociopathic tendencies. They didn't ask questions, and even if they did, they didn't care about the answers. It's a disturbing reality that only scratches the surface of a much darker truth. But here's the chilling part. There were hundreds more people involved in these operations, many of whom had no idea just how deep the corruption went or the true extent of the damage they were causing. To truly shut this down, the task force has to go higher, all the way to the top. They need to investigate the Pentagon, the ones calling the shots and giving the orders to spray death from 15,000 feet.
You were on the inside. Can you tell us what's happening now that these arrests have gone down?
Yeah, word's traveling fast. You can feel the shift. People are scared, not just because of the arrest, but because it's finally sinking in that this isn't just a conspiracy theory. It's real. And a lot of folks, they were working on these operations without knowing the full scope. They were told it was weather testing, climate intervention, you name it.
You're saying they didn't know they were part of something this dark?
Exactly. Compartmentalization. You only see your piece of the puzzle. But now, people are connecting dots. And after those two contractors were taken in, the fear hit hard. Everyone's wondering, am I next?
What about the higher-ups?
That's where the blame belongs. Not with the pilots, but with the overlords pulling the strings. The real architects are buried deep in command. They funded this, designed it, gave it the green light, knowing full well what it would do. As for the guys flying the planes, most of them were not clueless. They were chosen for a reason. No ties, no families, sociopathic profiles, the kind of men who don't ask questions and don't care about the answers. But even they're getting nervous now, because once the arrests start, the fall guys always go first.
Do you think the task force will reach the command level? Will they have the authority?
If they're serious, they'll have to. That's where the rot is. Otherwise, this whole thing gets buried again, just like before.
Why don't we hear more from Air Force insiders about these operations? The truth is, whistleblowers are speaking out, but their voices are being silenced, sidelined, or smeared. The mainstream media either ignores them completely or paints them as unstable conspiracy theorists. Meanwhile, those same outlets are running glossy puff pieces claiming that chemtrails are somehow beneficial for humanity.
I mean, how do we know that the chemicals that they're spraying from the air aren't bad for us or the planet?
The good news is we've been doing this since the 1940s and 50s. Other countries do it, and there have been a lot of research projects that have shown that the silver iodide, for example, is not found. It's negligible.
Kristen Megan was an environmental specialist 9 years into her career with the Air Force when she decided to debunk the chemtrails conspiracy theory. She thought the idea was insane. Why would we use hazardous chemicals in our atmosphere, poisoning the Earth and humanity? But instead of debunking or disproving the conspiracy theory, her research from within the Air Force revealed that chemtrails were a conspiracy fact, and her own office was playing a key role in the top secret operations. After a lot of sampling and investigating, Kristen blew the whistle and got out, emerging with a wealth of invaluable information about chemtrails, weather modification, the role of HAARP, and the evil agenda of the elite.
So here with Kristen Megan, she's a military veteran, right?
Yes, I was in the U.S. Air Force for 9 years.
Wow. And you came out and blew the whistle on geoengineering, things that you witnessed were going on. Can you give us the real nutshell?
Absolutely. Basically, I had heard of what many people know as the term chemtrails. And I worked in a job called bioenvironmental engineering, and I thought that was insane. And why would we do something like that? Modify the weather by using hazardous materials in our atmosphere? So, and actually the process of trying to debunk it or disprove it, I realized it was actually coming right out of my office, as I was one of the people that was approving the chemicals. And it really shook the core of my oath. And I did a lot of sampling, did a lot of investigation, and I blew the whistle and I got out. And I've now used my credentials, my oath, and my powers for good to help people understand it's very real. It's now openly admitted. There are multiple forms of weather modification. I specifically found the one of stratospheric aerosol injection, and collectively around the globe.
Kristen's job as an environmental specialist involved identifying toxic chemicals and substituting them out of the workplace for the health and safety of her military colleagues. She became radicalized when she learned that the same highly toxic chemicals she was substituting out of the workplace were the same chemicals that were spraying from the skies in industrial quantities, blanketing the Earth and humanity in deadly toxins.
And when you say you had chemicals being pumped into the air, what kind of chemicals are they putting out that rain down on humanity, basically?
Nanoparticulate metals, like you had different sulfates and barium and strontium. I know it's probably changed over time. I know they use silver iodide for certain things. But these are, the odd part of it was the quantities that I saw them coming in, the form that they were coming in. And it's the same type of materials that I was trying to engineer out of the workplace to substitute with safer materials. And when you notice that what's called a safety data sheet, the information about a chemical of what personal protective equipment to wear, how do you dispose of it, how do you pack it to ship it. When key information is missing, I ask questions, and my questions led to demonization, and I knew I found something I shouldn't have.
That's insane. So these metals are basically toxic for the humans, I would presume, or?
Yes, because it also has aluminum, and a lot of people will tell you, well, these things aren't horrible in small quantities. It's not small quantities, because when you are putting things above us, the dissipation rates are dependent on weather and climate, but it's getting into the food, it's getting into the soil. And around the world, these wastewater treatment plants, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, or these toxicants is what they're called, they are not able to filter them out. So if you're growing organic food, are we going to go back to the plexiglass barriers on our plants? I mean, it's horrible. That's why you can ban it anywhere. We've had states in the United States ban it, and that is great to get the ball rolling. But people really need to wake up to it, irrespective of any political party. It's not okay. And you're seeing a huge increase in neurodegenerative issues like Alzheimer's. It's really difficult for people with respiratory issues and asthma. And people are wondering why they have allergies 24/7, 365.
Kristen was hounded and demonized when she blew the whistle, called a conspiracy theorist and worse, only to be vindicated a few years later, when the global elite let the mask slip and confirmed what many people, including Prince, had known for decades.
This phenomena of chemtrails. When I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time and say, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And the next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing, and you didn't know why. Okay? And you really didn't know why. I mean, everybody was fighting.
Prince was dead in suspicious circumstances not long after this TV interview. Saudi princess Basma bint Saud, daughter of King Saud, also spoke out about what she knows about chemtrails and geoengineering. Shortly after this interview, she was thrown in prison without charges by the regime.
I think it's one of the key points of the new power in the world to understand geoengineering and how it can be used as a weapon, mass destruction weapon, without even exploding a nuclear bomb.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's very powerful. I mean, you can control water, which is massive. I mean, without water, there's no life.
Without water, there's no life. Without proper food, clean food, there's no life. Mm-hmm. It's just actually a way of slow poisoning that it will get you at the end. And then the population will just disappear into minimal numbers until there is no more population of billions, and it will come back to whatever it was. And I think that is the question here, survival and humanity. How do we concern ourselves in maintaining humanity and life on Earth?
These are critical times, and here at TPV, we're determined to expose the elite and hold them to account before it's too late. Join us in our mission to wake up the masses by subscribing to the channel and joining the People's Voice Locals community to be part of our amazing team. I hope to see you there.
Here are step-by-step snapshots to sign up for a free email service within minutes that is totally anonymous. It gives you a way to share any controversial videos, websites, emails, and links to any article anonymously. In your browser search bar, go to proton.me, then on the upper right-hand corner, click on Create a Free Account. On the left column, select Individuals, then click on Get Proton for Free. Then click on Continue with Proton Free. Under Username, enter an anonymous email address name that is available. If the email address is already taken, then add some numbers at the end of the username. Then enter a password of your choice, then click on Create Account. You should write down your username and password on a piece of paper so you don't forget it. Complete the CAPTCHA puzzle for verification that you are a human by dragging the puzzle piece to the appropriate spot, then click Next. Enter a display name which people will see when you send them an email, preferably something meaningful. You don't have to set up a recovery method if you truly want to stay anonymous, even to Proton Mail. If that is what you want, then continue by clicking Maybe Later. Just make sure you don't forget your Proton email address and password, because you won't be able to recover the email account if you don't choose a recovery method. You can now start using your new free and anonymous Proton email account to share videos, links, and articles with family, friends, and coworkers anonymously. If you've missed some of the steps during the sign-up process, then just replay the video and pause it at each step. Please share this video far and wide,